record this demonstration. And then as a follow-up, I'll send that to you so you can share it with your CMO. And I'm happy to do a live online demonstration, but that way, if it's easier, we can send the video and he'll know exactly what questions he has and what he wants to see, so we can be respectful of everyone's time.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, perfect. So just as kind of a starting point, RxNT has been in business for 18 years. We were actually founded as an e-prescribing company, and we were one of the first companies in the United States to have the technology that allowed our clients to send controlled medications electronically. And so as a result, our client base quickly grew. And one of the things that you'll see today is that we offer not just e-prescribing, we've also built out a full electronic health record. It is a true multi-specialty electronic health record, and what that means for you is that we can easily customize templates to match your organization's workflow. We also have a very flexible scheduling solution. And then, of course, we have the billing software, but that will be used directly by IMAX. And then depending on your relationship with them, you can have whatever access you guys decide that you guys would want to have to the system. All of our products are fully certified. Do you guys accept Medicare or Medicaid?
We plan to, yes.
Okay, great. And do you plan on testing for MACRA, MIPS, MU, anything like that?
Well, I'll have to speak with the founders on that one.
Okay, perfect. Well, certainly not something that you need to decide right away, but we are fully compliant. So as your organization kind of determines which route you want to go on that, you'll have the flexibility and the capability of doing that in our system. And even though you'll be contracting directly with IMAX, our relationship with IMAX is such that we will fully train your team on all of the products that you'll be using. And that's available at an unlimited capacity. So as you bring on new providers or maybe new locations, whatever that might look like for your organization, you just let us know what you need and we'll provide training to your team accordingly.
All right, perfect.
The other thing that you'll notice in the proposals that I sent you is that we do also include telephone and email support. That is available Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern time. And then we also have a 24/7 critical support system in place. So if there ever are system issues, that's when the 24/7 critical support kicks in, so that you're always getting the response that you need to be successful on RxNT. When you call in to support, you will talk with somebody in Annapolis, Maryland. We won't route you to a call center. You're going to talk with product experts here based in Annapolis, Maryland. And one other thing that I want to point out too, we have a very stable platform with a 99.9% uptime. So we certainly don't anticipate system issues, but we've got that backup critical support plan in place if we do. Now, how many of your providers do you think will need to prescribe controlled medications?
I think for location, it's going to be, I think either 6 or 8.
Okay, 6 to 8, perfect. So this is really going to come into play for prescribing controlled medications. We'll get to this a little bit more in the workflow portion of the e-prescribing, but I do want to point this out. There are some very specific DEA requirements that we're going to help you guys meet so that your providers can send those medications electronically. Before I move into the platform, any other questions about RxNT?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. So RxNT solution is cloud-based, and what that means is that all you need to access RxNT is internet, and you can even bookmark the customer login as a favorite page. And from here, your users or your team members will simply enter their username and password provided by RxNT. And when they do that, they will be able to access the dashboard. And this dashboard will contain the products that each member of your team have access to. So you might have someone who manages the front office, and they'll only see the scheduler. You might have an office manager who has access to everything, and then you might have clinical users who only have access to the electronic health record and e-prescriber. It is completely up to you and how you manage your team as far as what products they're going to have access to. And that's one of the other things that you can do on the dashboard is you can actually set up and manage all of your team members, nurses, anyone who needs access to the system right from this dashboard. And we are a tab-based solution, so once you select the product that you want to access, whether it be the scheduler or the electronic health record, if you have access to both pieces of the system, you can be in both places at once. So you're not going to be limited as far as needing to quickly save a note so that you can check the schedule. You can actually leave your note where it is and easily toggle into the scheduler. Any questions about accessing the system?
No, I think that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. So here is the scheduler. That's what you're seeing now. And I have this calendar set up by resource view. So I actually have decided that I want to see columns for each of my providers. And if you want to pull in the calendar for a 5th provider, a 10th provider, 15th provider, it really doesn't matter. This will kind of build out. And other ways that you can manage this is by day. So if you want to see all of the appointments in one column, you can do that. There's a lot of flexibility here. And even if you have multiple locations, we'll just add in a second tab so that you can easily toggle and schedule for multiple locations. Other things that you can manage from the calendar include your material resources, whether it's an exam room, it could, a group therapy room. It could really be anything that you want to manage as far as resources. And then you also can set up customizations here within the template. So you might want to have a new patient consult, a refill request, a medication follow-up. And these might not look anything like what you want your appointments to look like, and that's completely fine. It's all customized for you at the time of enrollment. And based on the patients that you have scheduled for a previous day, we will run eligibility verification at 4 a.m. that morning. So when you come into the office, you'll see a full list of eligibilities for all of your patients across all of your providers and locations. And that'll actually be available to the left of the Google Sync button, and it says eligibility. So when you come in, you click on that, and you'll see a live eligibility check for all of your patients. And you'll notice you can, of course, sync this with your Google Calendar, which is easy to connect to your iCal if you've got iPhone users. You can even export this to ICS for Outlook if you have Outlook calendars. But scheduling an appointment is simple. All you need to do is click on the time slot that you want to schedule for, and you'll be prompted to search for the patient. Let's say we want to look for Rita Henderson. I could search by last name, first name, chart number, but if I quickly identify that this patient doesn't exist, this is actually where you'll be able to click the plus button and add a new patient to the system. Otherwise, you'll select the patient's name, And what you're seeing here, this is actually a really great tool to help you communicate directly with IMAX. And what they can do is at the back end of the billing side of the software is they can set up notes so that when you see a patient, you'll know that you need to confirm that patient's date of birth. This is a great way for you to know exactly what information you need to collect while the patient is in your office. We also have your appointment template types here. And you'll notice that the new patient consult is 60 minutes, whereas your medication follow-up might only be 30 minutes. And these defaults will reflect exactly what you've asked us to set up at the time of enrollment. And then, of course, you can also manage repeating appointments. So if you need to schedule 5 appointments for this patient and you want to see them 1 time per week, all you have to do is select Save, and that's going to add 5 appointments to the calendar for this patient. Which brings us right into the check-in portion. So I'll go ahead and select the appointment that I want to check the patient in for. You'll notice again, we get another reminder. I need to confirm this patient's date of birth. Going into the demographics, you can make edits. This would be actually where you can edit the date of birth for the patient. The case section is where you can review insurance information. You can double check prior authorization numbers and just quickly see, how many visits does this patient have left? Do we want to go ahead and schedule this, or do we need to require prior authorization before scheduling the patient? And you'll notice this particular insurance is actually expired. So if you ever needed to make changes to it, you can actually do that right from here as well. What was that?
Oh, no, that wasn't me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. We also allow you to manually run eligibility. So if a patient's eligibility verification for that morning comes back and you see that they need to update their insurance, you can update their insurance and manually run eligibility in real time. The payment section is probably one of my favorite pieces of the scheduler because it does connect directly with the billing solution so that you can identify any copay information, self-pay information. In this instance, we actually have total balance. So this patient's total balance, or the amount that they owe, is $70. And you'll know that you want to collect that before you see the patient. Maybe they pay with a check. Right from this screen, you can actually accept this payment, and this will push into the billing solution so that your billing team at IMAX knows that that you've collected payment and they can update the balance for the patient. And then from here, you can finalize the check-in. You can call the patient in to be seen. And then, of course, we also have the checkout portion. Any questions about the functionality of the scheduler? Does that look like something that would meet your organization's needs?
I think so. It looks pretty easy to function and use, so it's perfect.
Okay, great.
Helena, what do you think of the configurability of it all? Did that all resonate with you, where Jess was taking you through, and you can set up, the setup on the front end enables you to, decide what appointment times, what the durations are, change the view, all of that makes sense to you? Any questions around that, or I just want to make sure you see the power of all that.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously this example doesn't pertain to us, but it's nice that we can actually just customize it to what we need. And yeah, I think it'll be fine. It looks easy to use. I don't think we would have much issues with it. Okay.
How about eligibility? Are you guys doing a lot of those checks? Is that something that, I don't know, is that something that would really help your organization if those automatic eligibility checks are done and you've got the ability to do ad hoc checking?
To my understanding, yes. We plan on doing that before the patient goes in anyway. So our schedulers will have access to this information so that they can provide all the information. Well, the patients can provide that. So it'll be good to have on file and everything, and something where they can just go to one screen. That's great.
Okay,
Perfect.
excellent.
And what would be an example maybe of a template that you might see your organization doing as far as appointment templates?
Well, I mean, like, this looks fine. I think just the details is what we would need to tweak once we get everything set up.
Okay, perfect. One other thing that I do want to point out as well is that you can actually manage availability for your team. So if somebody doesn't work Wednesdays, or if somebody's out on vacation, or if, you know, somebody, let's say, takes lunch every day at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, whatever that might be, you can also manage that, and that'll pop up on their calendar as well.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Will we be able to access this, like, once we expand and everything? Obviously, we're going to have more than one location. Will we have access to that information to be able to see the different locations and, like, what is set as far as appointments and everything?
Yeah, so you can kind of set it up a couple of ways, but I do envision it all being in the same scheduler unless you do want to keep the data separate. So that's completely up to you, but if you are okay leaving the data kind of all together, what we do is we will have a tab. So this tab says Psychiatry Associates. In your case, it might say Location 1, and then we'll have another tab and it'll say Location 2, Location 3, and so on and so forth.
Okay, perfect.
And then, of course, we do have reporting as well. You can access patient ledger information, which is great to have. It comes right from the billing. So if you ever want to know a patient's balance or see the details for that patient, you can. We've got a payments report, an appointment report, which I'll just show you real quick. Maybe you want to see all of your patients since January 1 of 2016 that had a appointment with the status no-show. You can run that report here as well. And all of our reports are exportable, so in the event that you ever wanted to export this to CSV, Excel, maybe even a PDF file, you could do that as well. And then we also have a prior authorization report and a reminders report. There is the option to upgrade the account to have automatic patient appointment reminders. Those can go out via text, via phone call, or via email, depending on your preferences, and also the patient preferences. And those will remind the patient of an upcoming appointment, whether that appointment is coming in 2 days, maybe you want the reminder to go out 2 days prior or the day prior, maybe even a week prior. It's completely up to you, but we can set those up as well.
And you said that would be an upgrade to our membership?
It is, and it's basically what we do is we'll charge you $2 a month for a phone number and or $2 a month for an email address. And that basically allows us to set up a phone number or an email that we can automatically send reminders on your behalf. And each text reminder is 2 cents, each email reminder is 2 cents, and each phone call reminder is 4 cents.
So that's in addition to the 2 months, or $2 per month?
Yes.
Okay. Can you send me the pricing on that via email too?
Of course I can. I'll make a note of that.
And it usually works for practice, it usually works out to about $14 or $15 a month.
Okay.
And how many visits do you anticipate having each month across the practice?
Let me double check. I know we're using a very low projection as far as patients per month. Let me go back to that real quick.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, and you can let me know later. I don't need to know right away.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect. Anything else that you might need in a scheduler, or does that pretty much meet all of your needs as you see them today?
I think that's fine with the scheduler. I think, so we're projecting for like, our patient projections actually change and fluctuate throughout the year, but it ranges from about 750 to in the 2000s numbers per month.
Okay. Yeah, that is a high amount of fluctuation. So,
It was 2,000 per?
yeah, 750 to 2,000.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead from here and move into the electronic health record. And again, we are just in a different tab. And what you're seeing is a provider dashboard. So I'm logged in the system at this time as if I were a provider with full access to the electronic health record and to the e-prescribing solution. So I just wanted to point that out. So if you have a nurse or maybe a different member of your team who you wanted to give limited access to, that's certainly fine. But within the electronic health record, as I'm demoing it today, just keep in mind I'm logged in as somebody that has full access.
Okay.
And just to kind of familiarize you with the dashboard, you'll see in the top left-hand corner a navigation bar. And this allows us to actually essentially change what you're seeing here. So do you anticipate working with any lab companies?
We're going to have a lab inside our clinic.
Okay, perfect. So it'll be an internal lab. Do you think that those messages will be all managed internally, or will they have their own software system in the lab? How do you kind of see that playing out?
I'll have to speak with the chief medical officer on that one and see how they want to get it set up.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll probably have him tackle that question.
Okay, great. I'll just make a note so we can come back to that later. Certainly doesn't need to be right away, just trying to get a feel for how you'd want the system laid out. If you decide, and maybe they decide that they want to actually have a lab system within the clinic, a software solution, they can have these flowing in electronically. But if they're just accessing RxNT from the lab, they can manually add the results, and that kind of eliminates the need for you guys to have any sort of interface. So we've got a couple of options, but those can come in here, or they can just be manually added by your team into the system. Other information on the dashboard includes prescription information. This is really going to be a great place for your team to come and say, oh, I want to review all of my recent medications. Maybe they just want to confirm that medication reached the pharmacy. It sounds like you may also have an internal pharmacy as well. Is that the case, or are you just going to have a pharmacist on staff?
We're just going to have a pharmacist on staff.
Okay, perfect. So once you send a medication to the pharmacy, you'll get to see the date and time it was received by the pharmacy. this pending tab is really helpful for your busy providers that rely on your nurses to actually queue up medications for them. So you can give a nurse the ability to send a non-controlled medication on behalf of a provider. You can choose to restrict that, so a nurse cannot send any medications electronically. RxNT automatically restricts the transmission of controlled medications by nurses. That has to be done through a provider. But if you leverage nurses to help manage prescriptions, they will have this pending tab. And this is where a prescription that's been set up by a nurse goes while it's waiting to be approved by the provider. And let's say that they wanted to, you know, finalize a prescription. They could do that right from this screen. Refill requests can come electronically, and you can also manage any voided medications. And then the bulk of what you're going to be doing in RxNT is what we call an encounter. That's actually a note or a service date with a patient. And we actually keep these encounters as alerts on the dashboard so your providers can see how many encounters or notes are still waiting for a signature. And those are all going to be in the unsigned tab. So these are basically notes that haven't been finalized. And then we also populate notes that have not yet been released. This is going to be anything that's not been sent to billing. So this is a great way to keep track of, okay, you know, these notes need to be sent to billing. What's going on? How can I help you so that we can start getting paid for these claims? Any questions about the provider dashboard?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go into the top right-hand corner of the screen, and I will search for a patient. I can search for any patient in our system, and if they're there, they'll populate here. You also will have the ability to add new patients from the screen, but my guess is that most of your patients will be added in the scheduler. And because these products are fully integrated, there's no duplicate data entry needed. So I'll go ahead and select the patient's name. And when I do that, this launches me right into the patient's profile or the patient's chart. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see a little picture of the patient, and you'll also see their demographic data. You don't have to choose to put a picture here, but it sometimes practices find that's helpful. And then we have another navigation tab. Now this navigation tab varies slightly from the one that you saw on the previous dashboard, but it's still designed to do the same thing. So all you need to do is click on this menu configuration, and you can see diagnosis, encounter data, so those are your service dates or your notes, medications, pretty much everything. Will your organization take vitals?
Mm-hmm.
And then do you need to record immunization history?
We may.
Okay, so let's go ahead and check that. And maybe you wanted to have encounters at the top. You can even modify the order that the navigation bar is listed in. And this just allows each of your providers to have a workflow that's tailored to them. Now, along the left-hand side, this is really designed to be quick access points to relevant information within a patient's chart. So you can see diagnosis information. We also offer patient education. So if you did want to review patient education, you can click on the on the diagnosis, and you can actually drill in to find additional detail where necessary. Other information in the navigation bar includes patient history, allergies. Again, we have the labs. So if you're receiving, and I'm going to actually go into a chart with a little bit more information. Here we go. So I'll go into labs so you can see results here. You can also see orders that have been placed for your patient. Patient documents. This is where you might access old records or a HIPAA consent form in this particular example. We have a section for administrative notes. This is just a place where you can kind of communicate or document something that you want anyone accessing this record to see. The vitals and charting section, where you take vitals, we will automatically push that data into its own date range. So if you wanted to come in and ever, run a chart for BMI, you could keep track of that here. And then, of course, immunizations. If you are reporting immunizations, that can be done here as well. And the vitals, the labs, the allergies, the patient history, the medications, the problems, these are all what we call plugins. And what this allows you to do is to leverage data that's already in the patient's chart to easily populate data in a new note. And once you save that note and you sign it, it's going to update these plugins with the most up-to-date information. So you're always accessing information that is 100% up-to-date for the patient.
Now, are these, the tabs on the side, are those customizable as well, as far as like the information, in case we want to, I guess, use something else other than immunization, like specific, I don't know, other specific information? Would we be able to change that?
So the tabs on the left, you cannot change other than you can determine what you want to make available and in what order you want it to be in. These are basically structured data, and they're structured to make sure that our product is always certified and that it meets the requirements regardless of whether you're trying to comply with meaningful use regulations or the latest release for MIT. So we've structured that for reporting so that you can easily obtain that. But we do offer in our system some flexibility in the encounters, which is where we are right now. One thing I do want to point out, just kind of briefly so you see what we've got here, is that each of your tabs or each of your notes can be viewed just by clicking this little view icon. The other thing that you can do with a note is you can copy it. So let's say you've done a progress note for a patient and you want to pick up where you left off. You don't want to have to type that information again. All you have to do is click the copy functionality. We pull that data into a new date of service. So all you have to do is update the information that's changed. We give you the ability to release this. The release functionality is something that we are documenting and making aware to you or making available to you in the dashboard. And that is how many have not been released. So when you hear the word release, that means it's not been submitted to the billing company so that they can actually send this out as a claim. We allow you to make edits to this, and of course, if it's not signed, you will have the ability to delete it. So let me go ahead and show you kind of an example of one note that has some information. And this is just one thing that one provider likes. It may not fit your specific needs, but we do pull all of this data together to fit a specific workflow that you might have. So this is actually where the customization piece comes into play. And we'll really get into that when I go ahead and click on the plus button. And the plus button allows me to create a new encounter. So what types of patient visits do you anticipate heavily doing?
I mean, it's going to be we're going to be focused on addiction treatment, so it'll be related to that.
And I think
It's going to be a lot of lab work and, yeah.
Yeah, and what was the thing that you said, the very first thing? I think I missed that.
So it's going to be focused on being an addiction treatment center, our clinic.
Okay.
So we'll have the clinic and then the lab side, but we'll also have like counselors and case management there too.
Perfect. I'm actually working right now with a client on some addiction treatment and counseling forms. And so those will actually be something that your organization can take a look at if you want to leverage those when they're made available. But what you'll see in my encounter forms are several different templates. And when I toggle over to the Manage tab, I have a list of about 10 or 15 that I most frequently show to clients. And when I toggle over to all, I just want to kind of give you an idea of how many templates are available in this system for you to leverage and to make customizations for. But my guess is that we're going to want to really come up with a custom template or two for your organization based on the type of work you'll be doing. So I'll show you a couple of really popular ones, but I don't think these will specifically meet your workflow requirements, only because I've been working so closely with another client who's developing custom templates. Do you guys have forms that you'll want to have in the system?
I'll have to, again, speak with my chief medical officer on that. He's going to be in charge of that whole division, so I'm sure he'll have some opinion on that too.
Okay, perfect. So I'll make a note of that too. And what that'll allow us to do is to actually add those forms specific to what the CMO wants into our system. But while we're here, let me show you how the plugins function. Basically, we've got a CPT code. These are your procedure code plugins. If you document the type of visit here, that'll flow directly into the billing solution so that your billers at IMAX can actually make the modifications that they need to, add the modifiers and the coding that they need to get this claim submitted. And I'll just scroll through this quickly. And what you'll notice is that this particular template has a toggle between basically free text. So this is a place where someone could type or dictate their note. And then it also has checkbox options. And this, again, is something that can really be tailored to your organization's needs, which brings us right into the medications plugin. Here, you'll be able to see all of the current medications as displayed in the medications tab. Same thing with your allergies. These are all pulling in directly from your allergies tab. Where you take vitals, you can update those from the vitals tab over on the left-hand side. And maybe you want to update this. Maybe the patient is at 132 pounds. You can make that change here. Again, we've got some combination of checkboxes and free text components before we move mostly into checkboxes. And I'll scroll through this right until the diagnosis section. And again, this is another plugin. We'll pull in all of your active diagnoses from the Problems tab in the navigation bar. And right from here is actually where you can leverage a great ICD-10 coding tool. And what this ICD-10 coding tool allows you to do is to actually say, you know what, I don't know the ICD-10 code. Maybe you just know an ICD-9 code. Maybe you don't know anything. It's something that you don't ever really diagnose, maybe such like a broken arm. You can come in here and do a keyword search, and we give you a plus sign indicator anywhere that you found the highest level of specificity required for ICD-10 coding. A red eye indicator saying, okay, if you add this code, that's fine, but you need supporting diagnoses. And then an arrow, and that arrow is a flag to you that you actually need to drill down further. And we want you right into drill down technology. So is this the initial encounter? Is it a closed fracture? Is it the left arm? All the way until you've got one code that can be added into your diagnosis list. And maybe you need to go ahead and remove one. So that's kind of one example of a template. That's a combination, again, of checkboxes and free text. A lot of our practices I'm seeing lately like to develop something that is primarily checkbox. They don't want their team to have to spend a lot of time documenting this data. They want a lot of checkboxes. Or they may want some drop-down options as well. So we've got a lot of flexibility here, but I did just want to at least show you how the plugins work to help you easily populate data. And I'm going to show you one other thing, and this is a shortcut that's available within the system. So I'm going to go into the Encounters tab, and I'm going to click Manage. And I actually want to show you a different template available within RxNT. It's called the RxNT Encounter, and it is a very generic template. It's actually one of our most popular templates available. If I can, here it is. So I'm going to add that form to my current list, and now it's at the bottom of that list. So when I come here, I'll select RxNT Encounter, and what you'll notice is that this form, as it exists today, is completely blank. But you can, from here, select a sub-template. These are customizable and managed directly by your team so that every time you have an ADHD follow-up visit or whatever that might look like, it's going to pre-populate data across the board. So all of these boxes are checked. And really all you would need to do is update vitals if you wanted to. And when I go all the way to the Preview and Save tab, you'll actually have a very populated note, and you've not had to do a lot of work to get this done. So you're leveraging on basically your experience and your internal knowledge to create these sub-templates and these shortcuts for your organization. And if you were done with this note, all you do is check this box to sign it, and you can click Save and Close. Any questions about the note-taking available within RxNT?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay, perfect. So let me go ahead and round this out with the e-prescribing portion of our system, and that's the Medications tab. And I did kind of skim over this previously because it is a full e-prescriber. So from here, you'll have access to current medications or medications actively being taken by the patient. You also have access to previous medications. This is a list of all medications that have been prescribed by your organization from the RxNT system and their statuses. So for example, this Prozac 10 milligram capsule was discharged because we upped the dosage on February 23rd. You'll have access to a history tab. This history tab actually allows you to leverage prescribing data based on whether or not a pharmacy has filled that medication or whether a claim has been submitted on behalf of that patient for that medication. So we're able to access claim and pharmacy fill data so that you can see what patients are being prescribed outside of your walls. Maybe they're getting a medication by their primary care provider, or maybe there's like potential for doctor shopping. This is a good way for you guys to look into this and to see what's happening outside of your organization. And from here, you can actually add a medication to a current meds list as well. And then, of course, any voided medications. These will be populated here. But regardless of what tab you're on, whether it's voided, history, previous, even current, this Write Rx tab is always populated. So if you wanted to prescribe a medication, you could choose to click here and refill or create a new medication for the patient, or you can come up to this Write Rx tab and you can search for a medication in our drug database. Do you know of any specific medications that you want to prescribe, or do you just want me to give you an example of one?
I can just give you an example, that's fine.
Okay. So I'll give you an example of a C2 medication. I'll go ahead and do a search for Adderall. And what we do is we provide a real-time formulary indicator at the point of prescribing. So you'll actually know whether or not this medication's on formulary. And we'll even let you know if prior authorizations are required. And when you click on the medication that you want to prescribe, we run a real-time interaction check. That could be drug to drug, drug to allergy, drug to demographic, or drug to diagnosis. And where an adverse interaction is occurring, this tab will actually be blinking red, and we'll tell you the specific details of that interaction. Otherwise, you can select on a custom SIG. These are basically prescription shortcuts. You can create something new as well. And you can have up to 75 prescription shortcuts per drug. Very easy to create these. Maybe from this prescription you said, you know, take 1 tablet by oral route once daily before lunch. You know, I want it to say with lunch. You can make that modification, and right here, if you select Save SIG, this will save it as a prescription, basically as a custom SIG or that prescription shortcut, like I mentioned earlier. And at this point, you are done, but we do have some additional features. You can run prior authorizations for medications electronically in RxNT. If you opt to do this, you'll actually receive a notification or a pop-up right from this screen that lets you run that electronically. And just as a reminder, we're going to provide you information as to whether or not that's needed, the real-time formulary check. From here, you can add pharmacy notes. You can attach a diagnosis. You could even schedule this medication to be sent at a later time. And you can add additional medications. But if everything looks good, simply click Continue, and that takes you right into the patient favorite pharmacy list. This list is automatically populated for your patients once you send your first medication to a pharmacy for a patient. And we do, of course, allow you also to manage a list of your favorite pharmacies. So pharmacies in the United States that you most frequently use. And what would be your zip code? I'll show you how the search feature works.
You can use 30324.
So you can run a zip code search, and this will show you all of the pharmacies in that zip code. If you wanted to expand this out of this zip code and maybe look at Atlanta, Georgia specifically, you'll have several more results populating here. And if you ever find a medication that you want to save as a favorite, just check this box and add it to your favorite. Any questions about the pharmacy search?
No, looks pretty easy.
Great. So I'll just go ahead and finalize this prescription by clicking Demo Pharmacy. It takes me into a preview where I can edit the patient information, change the pharmacy, make edits to the prescription. If I was a nurse or an administrative staff that's queuing this up for a provider, this is where I'll have the ability to save as pending. This does put this medication on the dashboard for your provider to quickly review and approve or void as necessary. When a provider clicks send for a non-controlled medication or an authorized nurse clicks send on a non-controlled medication, it instantly releases the medication to the pharmacy. But when it's a controlled medication, this is actually going to basically launch what we call two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is a DEA requirement for sending controlled medication. And the two factors that are required to be entered is your RxNT login password, or the password that you use to access the RxNT system, and a one-time PIN number, which is generated from a token. So that kind of takes us right back into the initial screen that we were on, and we do offer two token options. Both of these options generate a 6-digit PIN. So if you push the button, you'll get 6 digits. If you click generate passcode, you get 6 digits. And this can actually be plugged directly into the two-factor authentication box. And I'll show you that in a minute. But I do want to talk to you about the differences between the tokens. We do find that the small key fob is the most popular option. And the reason for that is because RxNT offers certified e-prescribing applications that can be downloaded onto an iPhone, iPad, and Android device. So your providers can send controlled medications, including those C2s, right from a mobile device. And the reason the token is more popular than the downloadable application is because the DEA states that whatever device you generate a prescription from, you're required to store the token on a different device. So for example, if you are a provider and you want to send your medications from your iPhone, you can't also store that token on the same iPhone. Any questions about that?
That makes sense.
Okay, perfect. So we get a 6-digit PIN number, and all we have to do is plug that 6-digit PIN right into the pop-up box. And if I was not in a demo environment, I would select sign, and that would instantly release the medication to the pharmacy. What are your thoughts of the e-prescriber? How does that look to you?
It's pretty easy. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Great.
Easy to navigate.
Perfect. The only other thing that's worth mentioning around e-prescribing of controlled substances is that identity proofing is required for providers that are going to e-prescribe controlled medications. We've actually integrated that capability into our software, so it can all be done electronically. And that's available in the Utilities tab. Down at the bottom, you'll see Activate EPCS, which just stands for Electronic Prescribing of Controlled Substances. And your providers will be able to click here and complete ID proofing. Once they've successfully completed that, we will generate a token and have that mailed or emailed to the provider, depending on which token choice they've selected. And I know that that was a lot, but we've pretty much covered the entire workflow, from scheduling to the electronic health record and note-taking to sending a medication. Overall thoughts, besides easy to navigate, do you think this is something that would work for your organization?
I think it would. I definitely want to show this demo to the CEO and the CMO. Okay. So I'll forward this information along once you send me the file. And of course, if I have any other questions, I'll either reach out to you or they'll probably reach out to you as well.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. I'll send you the recording. And like I said, I am happy to do a live demonstration. I just know, it can be hard to find a time when everyone's available. So I'll send the recording, and that way we can either do a full live online demonstration, or we can just hit the question that the CEO or the CMO have.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Hey, Helena, thanks for going through the demo with us. Just one quick question on the CEO, CMO. Do you expect that'll be I guess they want to keep it high level for the next demo, or go through it as we went through it with you?
I'll let them decide with that and see if they want to go into like more details and whatnot. But let me show them this first and see what they think.
Perfect. I'll have that video sent to you, and it likely will be a link with a password for you to take a look at.
All right, sounds good.
All right, perfect. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
All right, nice to meet you. Bye-bye.